Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 5th of September. I'm Holly Wainwright, and I'm remembering that we used to always say to our Out Louders on a Friday, this is your place on Friday for a bit of relaxation.
Oh, I love it.
A break from anything newsy. This is just a place where we do a bit of thinky, a bit of piss-takery.
Bit of fun,
a bit of
reccos.
Yep, reccos for your weekend. So welcome, relax.
You're wearing a cobalt blue shirt, which is the perfect vibe.
It is.
I'm Amelia Lester.
Amelia Lester.
And I am Jessie Stevens.
And on today's show, this is what made our agenda. First, the Google Doc that will instantly divide everyone listening into two types of people.
Plus our love-hate relationship with rich people's weddings.
And your weekly recommendations, including a brilliant Netflix drama, a strange fitness fad, and something very fancy for your face. But first, in case you missed it, headphones are making your anxiety worse.
How so?
Especially your noise-cancelling ones. Do either of you use noise-cancelling headphones?
Yes.
Do
you
you
can
Emily?
pry my AirPods playing pink noise out of my cold dead hands.
Really?
Pink
Okay.
noise.
So, according to a piece by a woman named Elle Jones on Substack, there is a growing body of evidence to suggest that noise-cancelling headphones are causing hearing problems in young people, but also the reliance on them is creeping. And she's saying that this is not a good thing. So first you use them on the train, and then maybe you're at work, you're trying to concentrate, you put on your pink noise, whatever it is, and eventually you've got them in because the hum of the refrigerator is irritating you. Important caveat as well, for people with neurological conditions or who are neurodivergent, there's an obvious exception, right? For a long time, people have needed this kind of stuff, but for most, they could be doing more harm than good. So audiology departments are reporting that more and more young people are coming in to get their hearing checked. And when they do check their hearing, they say it's not an issue with your hearing, but with your listening. So the part of your brain...
All children have that problem, the listening problem.
Exactly.
Just in that they can't hear you when you tell them to do things they don't want to do.
Yes. Well, apparently the headphones are making it worse. So it's the processing of the sound. They're not doing it as much. Filtering out noise from the car alarm to the barking dog is a skill that strengthens with practice, which we have evolved to be able to do. And if you start to control for all of that, then when you are confronted with an unexpected noise, like a door slamming, that leads to, really high levels of anxiety. The suggestion is that we go back to wired headphones, or we walk around with nothing in our ears and we reconnect with our environment. What do we think?
I've got those AirPods that cancel surround sound, and I coveted them for ages. I heard someone fancy on a podcast talking about them once, and I was like, that's what I need. And I bought them as a treat because they're expensive. And I'm in a love-hate relationship with them, which is why this does resonate, because Prosecco problems, it's like you put them in and you feel very disconnected from the world suddenly, and you're like, yeah, I wanted to listen to my podcast and my music, but I didn't necessarily want to be completely cut off from everybody else. But then the problem is you get addicted to them.
Yeah.
And now if they're not in noise cancelling, I don't feel like I can focus. So I think they're like, as you say, it's like it's a learning. The other thing that's annoying about them, and again, Prosecco problems, they turn down when someone talks to you, these fancy ones.
Really?
Right. So if you come up to me and you're like, Holly, I need you to blah, it turns down. And the thing about that is I don't want to listen to you. I want to listen to my podcast.
So I got my things on.
So I'm like, shut up. I've just missed the 5 really important words that Meghan Markle just said in her latest 4-hour interview so that you could tell me it was time to go and do some work. I don't know. I'm not into it.
I find them very claustrophobic. I don't like the feeling.
I think it's interesting to think about how the ubiquity of them has changed our relationship with the world en masse. And I think back to that Apple ad, which I know that you lot loved, but I was depressed by, the Pedro Pascal one, where he's walking through a busy city street and the seasons pass, a full year passes, and I believe he's getting over a breakup and then he meets someone new. I found it profoundly depressing because, setting aside the dreaminess of Pedro Pascal, what you saw there was he was completely disconnected from all these amazing things that were happening around him because he had his AirPods in. And it struck me as almost sinister.
No one can sell me the end of the world like Pedro Pascal.
I hate as well that you go, I have friends who are dealing with, newborns or whatever at home, and one of them does headphones when they're trying to sleep or whatever, which I semi-get, but it's also like, at what point is our house being robbed and we don't know? At what point has a plane crashed in our backyard and we are not aware?
They're not that good.
I need to mention earwax. Look, it's Friday. We're loose.
Yeah, okay.
I often think about the compacting of earwax that is happening when we jam those AirPods into our ears. Now, this is not based in anything scientific apart from a feeling that I am compacting earwax. Is that just a me problem?
No, that's a really good question.
I'm sorry.
No, but I wonder if constant wearing is not good, right? Because I've got friends who have talked about going to the doctor, realising they've got lots, get it all sorted, and suddenly everything's really loud.
And
that would be a great feeling.
And some people, such as maybe me, go to sleep sometimes with the AirPods in, listening to the Ezra Klein podcast.
Oh, wow.
And look, I know that's a sickness, but I just worry about the earwax situation.
I know. I would like a doctor to please tell us if we should be worried about that, if that's also making it worse for our ears.
I will say that Jennifer Aniston was recently photographed with the old school Apple wire earbuds, and it made me think that's a woman that knows how to live, and if she's got the wired ones back, maybe we should all be doing it.
If only she was aspirational to the young people, because the kids nag parents for AirPods, right? And kids, teenagers, tweenagers, and they're very expensive and they are exceptionally easy to lose. So usually you resist, and then they might get a pair of old ones or whatever. But if the wired ones were still cool,
they're so much more affordable. I've had wireless ones stolen off a pram, and I have had my AirPods. I leave the box everywhere. Like I've left the box on a plane and stuff. I need to get my wireless back in.
I once tracked a single left AirPod as it travelled the world after I left it on a plane.
Having a little adventure without you. Sit with me, friends, while we get very real about something. Approximately half of you are going to find this very useful, what we're about to talk about. You're either already doing it, or you will immediately start a Google Doc when we stop talking today. The other half will throw their phone in the ocean.
That's me.
Yeah, here we go. Let me tell you why. It's about death. I know it's Friday. I know we promised you fun, but I promise you this is very interesting, and it may change your life. It starts with a newsletter, right? This newsletter was titled The Most Loving Thing You Can Do, and it's by Elise Lernan. Now, she writes this newsletter called Pulling the Thread. Now, she used to work for Goop, and I subscribed to this newsletter because I thought one day she's going to spill all the beans about.
Okay, you subscribed for the gossip and you got death.
Yeah, because
right, here we are.
NDAs. Elise ain't never going to tell us what really went down at Goop. But she's also a writer and a speaker, and she's been on No Filter. She's a really interesting woman. Anyway, as I say, this newsletter was called Most Loving Thing You Can Do. She writes that 8 years ago, she lost her brother-in-law, her brother's beloved partner, Pete. And she says, every year, to honour Pete's passing, I do a little bit of personal housekeeping that might strike you as morbid. But I believe it's actually the most loving thing you can do for the people you love. In August every year, I go through a document that is shared with my husband and my brother, and I update any critical information in the event I might unexpectedly die. Now, what do you think? I'll tell you what she puts in it, but what's your first reactions?
My reaction is to sit down and do that would be to accept an inevitability I am not prepared yet to accept.
Mm-hmm. This is the two types of people argument. Amelia, how are you feeling about it so far?
I hate opening Google Docs at the best of times, let alone one about death.
Okay, here we go. She talks about how the practicalities of death, from immediate arrangements to the cancellation of so many parts of someone's life, everything from credit cards to bank accounts to social media accounts, are often beyond the abilities of the closest mourners, right? And when somebody loses somebody. And also, it's really hard to uncover and excavate. She writes, you want the people you love to be able to mourn without needing to hack into your email account. You don't want your partner or siblings guessing where you might have bank accounts. Most importantly, you want to give your people the opportunity to honor you in the way you would most appreciate. Nobody wants to guess about that. Here's an example of just some of the things she lists in this Google Doc. Email passwords, right? So email accounts and passwords. Phone and computer codes. So this is my passcode to my iPhone, this is my password to my computer. Mortgage details, other debts, life insurance, home insurance, car insurance, club and gym memberships. And then there's some less practical, more personal stuff like I would like my organs to be donated, yes, no, that kind of stuff. I would like my body to be buried or cremated, yes, no. I would like to be buried in this location. So basically your wishes. Put it all in one document that the people closest to you know exactly where it is. And she says this is the most loving thing you can do. Thoughts?
It's clearly a brilliant idea and a very important thing to do. And there are a lot of people I know whose families have been torn apart by trying to make these decisions by committee in the wake of someone's death. And that would just be awful. But it's a really hard conversation to broach with someone. I know that there are books that are basically like, here's what to do if I die. And it's like a spreadsheet, but it's like a little organizer. How do you give that? What birthday? Do you go, happy 80th, Dad? Here's a gift. Like, how do you even
that's the tricky part.
Broach that? And I think the other reason why people are hesitant is because they're actually crippled with indecision about some of those things. Obviously, there are quite clear things like here's my email password, blah, blah, blah. But the thing of where do I want to be buried? How do I want to be remembered? What flowers do you want? The music? I'm like, I have no idea. So,
well, you don't have to. It's not compulsory that you put all that stuff in. You could just do the practical things.
And her point is really clever, which is some people, obviously have a diagnosis or something which changes how the rest of their life looks. But most of us are going, we'll live for ages. I don't need to think about that. But she's saying, no, my brother-in-law dropped dead and left his family with a lot of admin. So I suppose I see some people in this life stage going, okay, let's get the death stuff out of the way so we can go on living and we don't have to think about it anymore. But I also think that the two types of people is some are so comfortable with dying. There are people in my life at all different ages who are so comfortable with that reality. They can talk about it. And then there are others, again, some of them are young, some of them are old, who will just never come to terms with it. And it's always going to be something that they try to avoid. And I think I'm in the latter camp.
Look, as you were talking, Holly, I realized I was physically recoiling from my microphone. So that speaks to my own personal comfort with this subject. But it did put to mind a New Yorker story from 2010 that has stayed with me for 15 years. Maybe it's the most powerful article I've ever read. It was by the physician Atul Gawande, who writes a lot about public health and about how individuals can live healthier lives. But this article was called Letting Go, and it was about the importance of talking to people you love about what they value in life and what they are prepared to put up with when it comes to medical care. And he makes the point that people, until very recently, dying was typically a very brief process. And these days, a catastrophic sudden illness is, of course, possible, and we all know people to whom that's happened, but it's much rarer than it used to be. So as a result, the dying process has become incredibly prolonged, and we sort of expect doctors and medical practitioners to do everything they can to prolong it, even when we or our loved ones might not want that. And he tells us one story that I will never forget in this article, which is this daughter spoke to her dying father about what he wanted in terms of medical care. And he said the conversation was agonizing. There's no sugarcoating it. It was incredibly difficult for both this daughter and her father. And he had this illness, and she said, what are you prepared to put up with? He said, as long as I can keep eating chocolate ice cream and watching football on TV, I want to stick around and I want to fight. But when I can't do those things anymore, I don't want to be here. Yeah. And so it became a litmus test whenever he had a surgery. It was like, well, will he be able to eat chocolate ice cream and watch football on TV after this? If yes, go ahead. And then eventually it got to the point where he couldn't eat anymore. He couldn't eat chocolate ice cream. He couldn't eat anything. So at that point, they knew he had to move to hospice. I mean, it's just the most powerful idea.
This is really interesting because the thing is there are different groups of people who would talk about this in a different way, right? What you're describing there in terms of is like, they often call it a deed of advanced care, where you get You get somebody who is, maybe edging towards that part of their life to write down all their wishes for in case things happen to them, which are more about their own care. And as you say, like at what place they want intervention. That's also a really difficult conversation to breach with people, but what an excellent filter.
Yeah, and it can be called a living will.
It can be called a living will, exactly. And when I interviewed this amazing woman called Dr. Jackie Bailey on Mid last year, she said, ideally, everybody who's older should have one of those. And she said, if they're not Google Doc kind of people, print it out, put it in a plastic folder, keep it on top of the fridge, tell everybody where it is and just leave it there. And it's got that kind of stuff. And if you care about it, the funeral stuff and all those kind of things, and maybe some of these things that Elise Lerman is talking about too. The tricky part is, as you've touched on, Jessie, is there are two types of people. I know, because I'm in this life stage where most of my peer group is going through various degrees of issues with their parents around illness, health, ongoing quality of life, death and dying. And there are some people whose parents are fighting fit at the moment, but they are death cleaning like crazy, clearing out the garage, clearing out the attic, deciding to downsize, making all these very practical decisions. And they're like, I don't want you to have to worry about this. And then there's the second group of people, to the two types of people argument, who are like going, I want to live my life exactly as I've always lived my life for as long as I possibly can. And then when something goes pear-shaped, we'll deal with it then, right? And the thing is that as any adult children of parents will say, is that can be very difficult for them when the inevitable happens. But is it fair to try and force someone into a very difficult conversation to make your life more convenient? You know what I mean? And I'm being flippant when I say that, because I know there's a lot more to it than, it would be convenient for me if I knew what all the passwords were and I knew exactly what you wanted to do. But it's difficult. But what Dr. Jackie Bailey suggested to me, because she said some people who are very uncomfortable talking about death, you've got to provoke them into it. This was one of her tips. So she said, for example, if your parents or some person that you love who's going through this, for example, that maybe they are very non-religious, provoke them with something like, so obviously you'd want a priest to come to or I know what song you'd like. You'd love blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And they'd be like, you'd be like, Daisies by Justin Bieber. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Whatever. And they'll be like, what? And she said, provoke them into talking about it, because that's often a way to kind of get the ball rolling in a fashion that's a bit more accessible. And then the other thing she said, which is to the Elise Lerman thing, is she's encouraging people who aren't elderly to do this in case of unexpected eventualities. Dr. Bailey told me that we should all be doing it anyway, because then we'll have a better understanding of what it's like for our parents. Like if you've done it yourself.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah, if you've done it yourself, then you know like what it's like and how confronting it is and things for your parents. But the thing is for elderly people, it is so confronting to suddenly be told, well, think about it, Mum, like how many summers do you think you've got? You know what I mean? Like it's so up close, and some people are comfortable and some people just aren't.
Yeah, I think too, the living will thing is really interesting. And I was speaking to someone last year about AI advancements, and they were saying that there is this increasing, like this new technology that they're developing, which is basically the way that AI can scan your medical records, your preferences, conversations you've had with doctors, whatever, and predict what you would want at a stage. So someone who, for example, the one that I think about a lot is dementia, and that can progress really fast. And it's really hard when someone gets a diagnosis to go, all right, what are you, like, talk about just, worst nightmare, what you don't even want to think about down the track. But it's going, what would this person want? And that's a thing that families are grappling with all the time. Would they want to be here? Would they want to be here?
And the ambiguity of dementia and the way it makes ambiguous what the person suffering from it would want has come up just this week, because Bruce Willis's wife is under all sorts of scrutiny because she's come out and said that she lives separately from Bruce Willis because she thinks that their children need a little bit of space from him. And she said that that's best for them, but she's facing a lot of flack for it.
Yeah. And to be fair, she said that they've built a beautiful, comfortable home for him with everything he'd want. It's not just like, off you go, Bruce. But yeah, so much criticism. We've made our own version of this really at Mamamia, a sort of template to help start you off, prompt some of these conversations if they're difficult or if you want to do this yourself. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes too.
Can I throw in an additional recommendation too? I read a book a few years ago called Staring at the Sun by Dr. Irvin D. Yalom, and it is about overcoming the dread of death and death anxiety. He's a therapist who worked with people with quite profound death anxiety, and I think about it all the time. And if there's someone in your life who broaches that as an issue that they find like distressing at any stage, it can just be a useful thing. Sometimes it's better to look it in the eye, I think.
And obviously, if these are issues you're grappling with right now, Out Louders, just sending you enormous love.
I want to talk about weddings. We're entering wedding season. And specifically, I want to talk about rich people's weddings.
Happy days.
Because what could be better? There is a rich person wedding that we understand happened this past weekend. It was an influencer known as Becca Bloom on TikTok, real name Rebecca Ma. She only joined TikTok in January, but she already has 4 million followers, and the Wall Street Journal recently crowned her the queen of Rich-Tok. Now, Becca is very wealthy. The money comes largely from her parents. They founded a tech company in China before she was born. She grew up in the San Francisco area, and she herself is doing very well financially. She sold a tech company in high school for about $350,000. And she currently works at some kind of fintech company. She hasn't said what company that is. She's also engaged, now married, to an executive at Amazon. So clearly there's a lot of money floating around there. And we are talking a lot of money. So for instance, just to give you some ideas, she feeds her cat caviar.
Yeah.
The cat prefers actually sushi grade salmon, but we'll put that aside.
Who doesn't?
She goes on date nights with her fiance, stopping by jewelers to get diamonds. He gives her surprise Chanel boots. They watch White Lotus in their private cinema, regular date night stuff.
So I'd never heard of her, right? And you guys Jessie was like, oh, she's
Do you
amazing.
love her, Jessie?
She is all over my feed. And I do find something, she's got a very calming voice, and as someone who is revolted by conspicuous consumption and could not care less about designer anything, can't pronounce any of the things she's talking about, I must say there is something quite charismatic about her.
Definitely, but my head fell off because I didn't know who she was, and you directed me to her, and she's funny and she's clever and she's a very good creator. But I was like, I am watching a woman. She was like, I think the one I watched, she was, put my jewelry on with me while I recommend 5 books you should read immediately. And then she's literally piling on millions of dollars, literal millions of dollars of Van Cleef Arpels and Chanel.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, and all this stuff while she's telling you to read The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And I'm like, what weird third dimension have I moved into now? And then she's like, as she said, hey, I'm feeding my dog. I've got these special plates for them. I'm going to plate up while I talk to you. And you're like, I didn't know this world existed. Am I happy I've stumbled on it? I'm not sure.
Well, this is what I want to talk about because a lot of people feel the same way as Jessie. They love her. They find her calming. Her wedding was on this past weekend at an 18th century Baroque estate on Lake Como. It was estimated to cost $500,000 for 200 guests. But the internet loves her. So a sample comment on one of her posts is, when I say eat the rich, I would never mean you.
Yeah. Becca gets a free pass because she's funny and charming.
Well, is that why? I have another theory as to why. So I wanted to compare the sort of adoration that she gets to the reception that Lauren Bezos, get out the world's smallest violin, got to her nuptials to Jeff Bezos in Venice recently. And I think we can safely say most people were ridiculing them, were disgusted by the show of wealth, the foam party on the yacht, all of that. Why are some rich people given a pass for their fancy weddings and some other people, we want to eat them? That's the question I want to put on the table here.
I reckon that Becca's self-awareness, the way she wears it and owns it with a bit of a sense of humor, is incredibly refreshing for people. What people don't like is rich people who pretend they're not rich.
I don't think that qualifies Bezos. I don't think no one was being modest about that wedding.
But here's the thing, right? There is something about that. It felt like it was papped, and there were elements of that wedding that we got access to. But Becca has this vibe of you're at your really rich friend's house who you quite like, even though they're really, really rich, and they're showing you all the jewelry, and you're kind of just there going, Oh my goodness,
She
this
has
is
a
wild.
wedding tree. Tell us what a wedding tree is.
Okay, I'd never heard of a wedding tree, but it's sort of like a Christmas tree, Holly. And what people do is they put all their gifts for your wedding under it, except this isn't like a toaster.
No.
This is like
They don't need no toasters.
Hermes, the H is silent, and also a Chanel bag, and also just all of these, which she does unboxings, which I must be clear, I feel physically sick.
I was watching her
do not like it.
I was watching her do some of those, and she opened something from Hermes or whatever, and it was like, "This is a wedding present to myself for committing to doing my best." It's just like, lol. She's not even really pretending that she's getting married because she wants to marry this guy. It's like, this is another scene in my life, and we get a lot of presents for it. She must also be getting paid by all these jewelry brands. So she's not buying all that
No,
stuff.
apparently not.
Come
apparently
on.
not.
She is an ambassador for Van Cleef Arpels. Anyway, back to your point.
I've got another
What do you
theory.
think?
Yeah, back to your point. Oh, also, can I just, on your theory though, can I just say there's very valid reasons for disapproving of Bezos. We probably don't know that much about where Mars money comes from.
No, we don't even know where she works.
Really, a lot of the ridicule we have for Bezos and that wedding and the showiness of that and the 5-day extravaganza and all the people who went to it is also kind of to do with, and I'm just going to gesture broadly and go, the world right now. And we can kind of hold the Bezoses of the world who are at Donald Trump's inauguration, who are, decimating traditional industries around. We can kind of hold them accountable for it, right? Whereas Becca Bloom, we're just like, who knows? Maybe she got all that money by lovely means, and I'm really happy for her diamonds.
So it's interesting that her proximity to Amazon as well. The fact that her husband is an Amazon executive kind of doesn't seem to taint her image. But when I started being served videos of her, it was her telling me what it was like to grow up that rich. And there's an element of like,
perviness.
she was just born into this wild
That's
life.
That's it. Great segue. I think this is about how we feel about gold diggers. And I'm sorry to use the term, but I'm throwing it on the table because I think that's what's going on here.
But she's not a gold digger, right?
Exactly. So the Bezos wedding is about this idea that Lauren Bezos is marrying up. And it turns out there's a word for it. When you marry into a different social class, it's called hypergamy. Not to be confused with bigamy, hypergamy.
Hypergamy.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And we've got a number of examples of that floating around right now. There's Lauren Bezos. There's Huma Abedin, who is the Democratic operative who married a Soros recently. And Melania Trump is arguably a kind of archetype of that too. And there's a lot of different feelings going around about how we should feel about these women who are marrying up. If you look at Call Her Daddy, that podcast kind of frames marrying up as a smart business decision.
Yeah.
It does. Or think of the TikTok that blew up. Let's have a listen to it.
I'm looking for a man in finance with trust fund. 6'5", blue eyes. Finance, trust fund. 6'5", blue eyes.
That was a banger of last summer, I think, wasn't it?
It's also the movie Anora, the movie Materialist. All of these movies and pop culture moments are about embracing the idea of marrying up as a smart thing to do. As a woman in a world where the system is rigged against you, inequality has never been more rampant. And yet we also hate women who do that. We also feel disdain for them.
We can't trust them.
We can't trust them. Becca Bloom didn't do that. She grew up rich. Yeah, she's marrying a rich guy, but that's actually kind of beside the point. I think that money comes from her family and from familial wealth.
That is so depressing.
I think too, I was reading this piece in the Wall Street Journal about her that was saying we live in an age of such status anxiety that even the really rich don't feel like they have enough. Like there's a real
definitely.
To be able to look down the barrel of a camera and go, I am really rich. I've always been rich. I will always be rich. Come and have a look at my house. Is like the reason why her content goes viral is because she's exceptionally rich. Like the idea that there was one that she did recently, she needed wedding shoes or whatever, and so she just got on a private jet and went to Paris. I didn't know that people did that. And there's such normally a wall up and a privacy about wealth where people who are low income or middle income do talk about money. They talk about salary and they talk about rent and they talk about mortgages. But when people edge into those kind of upper echelons, it becomes a little bit kind of...
Her wall will come up. Like, she's only been doing this since January. She is putting a massive target on her head in many ways.
No, but think of, say, the Sophia Richie Grange wedding, which was another real celebrity wedding moment. She got married in 2023, and that was kind of like the crowning of quiet luxury. Like, that was the culmination of that trend. She got married in a number of different designer dresses. I think Chanel created 3 of them for the weekend. She was very celebrated on the internet, and that's because she's Lionel Richie's daughter. She's rich herself.
But do you think the people who, and obviously when Becca Bloom's wedding photos dropped, because everybody's been very invested in the journey, she's tried on 20 million dresses and all the jewels and da-da-da-da-da. Will everybody be watching it with aspiration, or will they be watching it like, like a sort of freak show almost?
That's what's bizarre, is that it does seem
to
to be laced with some aspiration. It's not how I watch it, but if we view weddings as content now, which is really what they are, they're a great content strategy for at least 6 months. You do the try-ons, you do the venue. She's going to have so much content out of this.
That's why we say, will you take me as your content strategy?
Yeah. Because it is literally that, right? Like, I know this is an unpopular thing to say, but choosing a place that you have no connection to, not that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she has a deep connection to it, but like a beautiful villa in Lake Como as your film set.
You're just saying that, Holly, because you've started learning Italian, so you think that you have a claim to Lake Como. And you're like, you don't even do Duolingo every day, Becca.
But you know what I mean? It's like, this is the film set for what I'm imagining here. Because you're so right. We're obsessed with this stuff, and we know that weddings in ordinary people's lives give them a content strategy for 6 weeks at least. But if you contrast this with, say, Charlie XCX's wedding, which was in the Northern Summer in London this year, where they went to the Town Hall, Hackney Town Hall, which is a very cool place to get married. It used to be Chelsea Town Hall, but now it's Hackney Town Hall. And you wear a short dress and then you go to the pub and you have a pint and a ciggy, and then you just have a party with your mates. Now, obviously, that's very true to Charlie XCX's brand, but to me, it feels like an actual wedding that's about getting married to somebody and celebrating your mates. These kind of weddings, and I know that you could argue that I'm jealous and da-da-da-da, but they just feel like a performance. There doesn't feel like there's anything real about it. And the idea that you can invite all mum and dad's rich friends and they'll put presents under your tree that you don't even need.
All weddings are performances.
Yeah, but there's levels, isn't there?
Yeah. I reckon too that there's something distinctly American about this phenomenon. Becca Bloom doesn't exist in the UK and she does not exist in Australia.
I don't know if that's true.
Can you imagine how different it would look in the UK? Because there's such a sense of new money and old money.
Well, think about royal weddings.
Yeah, royal weddings are the ultimate content strategy.
I'm not talking about weddings. I'm talking about content on TikTok and the idea that there's transparency. Yeah. Like in the UK, there's a real sense of privacy. Like even I'm thinking about, what was the movie with Jacob Elordi?
Saltburn.
I'm thinking about Saltburn and the way that there is a certain amount of wealth that becomes very, very private. But if Becca Bloom existed in Australia, she would have a much larger target on her back, I think. In the US, there's a thing about the American dream and aspiration, and if I just work hard enough, I too will have my wedding in Lake Como with my gift tree. Before we get to recommendations, I need to tell you about Ned the snail. A woman in New Zealand, her name is Giselle. She was hanging in her garden, like you, Holly, and she noticed a snail tumble in the dirt.
I see snails. Oh, my God. Do you know what I do with them? What? No, I can't say, actually. I don't kill them. Don't worry. I'm not going to kill them. I pick them off because they're eating your things.
Okay.
Pick them off, throw them in the hedge.
Well, that's what Giselle was going to do, Holly. And Giselle is very into the environment. So you're allowed to throw your snail as long as you don't crack their shells.
Don't throw it too hard.
Don't throw it.
A gentle toss.
Exactly right. So she was just going to kind of move the snail along, was her euphemism, when she noticed something unusual about Ned. And that was that Ned had a shell that spiraled to the right. The reason that's interesting is that nearly all snails on their shell spirals to the left.
Oh, my God. I did not. How closely are you looking at a snail?
Well, I should say that Giselle was primed to notice this because she works for the New Zealand Geographic magazine.
Right.
So she knew this. She's
talking about content strategy.
She's snail fluent. She knows. She understands the significance of shells.
Hang on. This is interesting. What's the big deal? Why do we care that the snail shell's gone the wrong way? Well, it's Ned's penis. Allow me to explain. His reproductive organs won't line up with other snails because their shell is the other way. It's kind of like he's programmed the opposite way around. And in order for Ned to meet a lovely life partner, I know this is very heteronormative and we've not even asked Ned about his preferences.
I know. Where's the consent in this?
Exactly. But if Ned wants to procreate
And doesn't every snail just want to
doesn't.
make little baby snails
Exactly.
to eat my cabbages?
If he wants to, then he needs to find a snail with the same shell, right? So people in New Zealand, this would only happen in New Zealand. In New Zealand are being encouraged to find Ned a lady friend. They are looking for a snail with a shell that spirals to the left. Giselle has, of course, acknowledged that they will need to be compatible personality-wise and that sparks will have to fly.
So can we help? Can we look?
Thank you, Amelia. That's what I thought. Because we're not far, are we?
No.
We're not far
We
from
could
New
throw
Zealand.
a snail to New Zealand.
Exactly.
I couldn't throw my snails to New Zealand.
Put one on a plane. I think that if someone finds a little lady, how do we tell
Are
if it's a
Customs
lady?
and
They're
Border
not-
Protection going to be cool with that?
No, they're not.
No, maybe it's just I feel like Ned couldn't get in,
I
but I
don't-
feel like Nora could get out.
I don't want to be rude, Ned, but you're not an endangered species. If Ned does not get to procreate, the garden snails will be fine.
No, but then how about the ones with the left side?
They'll be all right.
Oh.
It's very cute, but I'm sorry. One less snail to chew my cabbages. I'm here for it.
It's Friday, so we want to help set up your weekend with our best reccos. Holly, please go first.
I'm currently obsessed with cheeks.
Yeah.
I don't know like where it's come from, but I go through phases when it comes to beauty and skin things. And at the minute I'm like, I've noticed that because we're always on video, I've noticed that if I've got colour in my face, I just look more alive. And that's a good thing.
So like a blush.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought this thing because, and this is the most 2025 midlife sentence you'll ever read. I saw Naomi Watts recommend this in Miranda July's newsletter. It's a balm by a brand called Jones Road. Now, Jones Road is Bobby Brown. You know, she's a very famous, but she's got her own brand. She's had it for a few years now, but it's only just become available to be shipped to Australia. So it's available in Australia now. And this balm, it's called Miracle Balm, is kind of controversial because some people think it's great and some people think it's a bit of nonsense, a bit of Emperor's New Clothes, because it's kind of like a blush or a highlighter or like almost like a lip balm, but it's for your face.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in 13 different shades. And even the ones that are quite pigmented are quite sheer. So it's but it makes you feel like plumped up and dewy and it gives you a bit of a shine.
But it doesn't give you a lot of pigment.
Not a lot of pigment. Some of them have got more pigment than others, and some are almost clear. But I've been putting it on. You might be able to see, but I've been putting it on, and it kind of makes me feel like. So they say on their marketing, you can either wear it. You could wear it with a bare face if you're got gorgeous skin like Naomi Watts. You could put it on a bare face, and it just gives you a bit of. Or you can put it over foundation, or you can put it on halfway through the day to kind of pick you up. Blah blah blah. Anyway,
It looks very much. It's got a highlighter.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's
I really like
kind
it.
of glowy, and it comes in quite a big pot, so it'll last you a long time. But it is expensive; it's $70.
Okay,
right? And they come in all these different shades. And then at the moment, if you're shipping that, like my shipping was about $15, but if you'd spent loads of money, you get free shipping, obviously. But anyway, I really like it, so I'm putting that. But because I know that's a lot of money, there is also lots of dupes of it because it's become really famous and fantastic. So you can also buy Revolution Balm Glow and you can buy that in lots of shades too at like a price line, and it's a very similar product. There are quite a few of them now, but this is the one that everyone says is the best, and you can get that at Priceline. Revolution do really good things. I love the highlighter, and that is literally $14, and in fact it's on sale at the minute for $9. So there you go.
And you can probably
Does
try
Becca
it.
Bloom have a dupe version of a Van Cleef Van Arpels thrice round the neck chain? I don't think so.
Amelia, what's your recommendation?
Okay, so mine is a thing called laughing yoga.
It just doesn't seem that you, Amelia.
No, I've got like a real hippie streak. Yeah, I do.
Tell us how it works.
Okay, so it's done in my neighbourhood by a lovely lady named Tomoko, but you can look up places to practice it across Australia on the Laughing Yoga website, laughteryoga-australia.org has classes. Basically, it's not really yoga at all. You stand around in a circle and you basically just laugh together. You do various exercises that are meant to trigger laughter, but the good news is that fake laughter and real laughter actually have the same effects on the body. Basically, they're a form of breath work. Like laughter is a form of breath work. You're taking in a whole ton of oxygen and then that's calming down your nervous system.
So there's a group of, I'm assuming mostly women, maybe not. standing in a circle.
I did take my partner along.
Do you tell jokes? Like, how do they? Like,
How do you laugh?
Like, how do you have a comedian? Like, how?
So, for instance, one of them is you go, ha, 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 ha. And because you're all doing it in this sort of circle together, it feels really silly. I took my partner and my best friend, and then we just felt so silly. We just actually started laughing.
I can imagine.
And then by the end, laughter is contagious and it is sort of generative, like it builds on itself. So by the end, you're practically hysterical and there are tears rolling down your face. And it's true that afterwards you feel incredibly calm because you've just taken in all this good oxygen and you didn't even have to do a downward dog.
Ha, ha. Ha, ha, ha.
I like that as an idea. I like that a lot more than breath work.
Yeah, and I like a lot more than actual yoga because it doesn't involve core strength.
Do you have to do any bending around and stuff?
No, you don't. You just stand in this circle and you don't even really need to wear yoga clothes for it because, again, you're not moving that much.
You don't have to wear soft pants.
You don't. This class was followed by a sound bath, which was also lovely, where you lie down and they the practitioner uses various singing bowls to create great sound frequencies that are meant to hum along with your body. But you don't have to do that. You can also just walk away from it and feel amazing and relaxed.
Okay, that's amazing. I am recommending a drama on Netflix called Hostage.
Yes. I'm with you.
Which a lot of the Outlouders have messaged me about. I scrolled past it the first few times and then I even read the synopsis and went, just kind of didn't grab me. Gave it 10 minutes, totally in. So it stars Saran Jones, she's this British actress who's in every British crime show.
She's particularly in everything tense.
Yes.
That's like she specializes, in tense things. Which was the one? What was
submarine
the submarine one. Yeah.
That was great. She was in a
that
submarine
one that we can't remember the name of.
But the premise is basically that she is the UK Prime Minister. And her husband is a doctor who is working overseas and he is captured and held hostage. And it's about why these people are angry, what they want. And it also stars Julie Delpy, who is the president of France,
Swoon.
who's also blackmailed. And she is, Before Sunset, I've got to watch all of them again.
Oh, they're so good.
She
How
is
good are
so
they?
heaven. And I know this is a sidebar because I'm watching this too, Jessie. Like, watching these two women in these really powerhouse roles is great, but Julie Delpy, seeing her, I don't think I'd seen her much lately.
No.
She looks amazing, sidebar, but she looks amazing, French cool, the red lip.
The red lip
I mean,
is
come on.
fantastic.
And the tension between them and the story about her, so good.
It's great. And at no point is it even referenced or explored that they both happen to be female world leaders. It just is. It is such a good show. Really enjoyed it. And it's a miniseries. It's 5 episodes, so it doesn't drag on and on. Really good.
Can I ask you a question? This is not a spoilers question, but so I'm at the end of episode 4. I've got one left, but I have to wait till I get home because Brent and I are watching it. Is the ending satisfying? Did they stick the landing?
I found it satisfying, yes, but I would love to talk to people about the end of episode 1. It just starts conversations between you and your partner where you look at each other and you go, hang on, would you quit your job to save my life?
Yes.
And it's an interesting conversation.
A massive thank you to all of you Outlouders for being here with us this week. Jessie and Amelia, read us out.
A big thank you to our team, Group Executive Producer Ruth Devine, Executive Producers Emeline Gazilas and Sasha Tanik.
Our senior audio producer is Leah Porges, video producer Josh Green, and our junior content producers are Coco and Tessa.